Hello and welcome to part two of a introductory lecture that I've prepared for you on the website analysis memo. I wanted to show some examples of previous student work and talk about some more issues related to this assignment. So let me call up some student projects and take a look at them and talk about them. Okay, in this particular example, the writer is writing about ESPN.com, the website, and so we see memo prominently at the top, and the memo header, and the statement of purpose, about one sentence. Very simple way to get in to a memo instead of saying "Dear so-and-so," which we don't do in a memo. This is the easiest way to get into a memo. The purpose of this memo is to, and in this case, examine the website, provide feedback for improvement of the website. Okay, so I highly recommend that section in your memo. And the different sections of the memo, it's not just a matter of breaking it up, but it's organizing the discussion in a way that is suitable for people in the business world, people who are frequently busy, that they can kind of come in and out on a memo, find their way back to where they were before. And so frequent use of headings is helpful. And also that we're encountering different audiences. So different people will need to read this memo from start to finish, but other people might read the statement of purpose and immediately decide this is not for me. So it's helpful for everyone. Some people read the statement of purpose and they want to know more, and so we have this background or overview section following. But for people who feel like they already know, they've been involved in the issue, they don't need to read the background or overview section at this point. So right before the conclusion, we have recommendations for improvement. And some people might just go straight to that section. So there's a rationale behind setting up these different sections, and they speak to different people who have different levels of familiarity with the project. So the second section, background overview, we're making sure that everyone who reads this memo, that we're all on the same page. So we're establishing a common ground here. And in this part of the memo, we're trying to be as objective as possible. So not being evaluative, analytical, critical. We're going to get to that with the evaluation and analysis section. But what we're trying to do in this part of the memo is just be objective and factual. We describe the website, how we see it, and then we put a screenshot in that kind of shows the website when you first visit it, and we add a little caption to it down below. And so if we show the client a picture of the website, their website, and our understanding of it by writing about it in text, describing it, we're kind of establishing that we see their website the same way that they see their website. So if there's a discrepancy here, then it shows that there's some issues with this website, that maybe they see it a particular way, but in actuality, or from a reader's perspective, a lot of people see it differently. So we want to make sure that we are describing it to them and establishing this common ground here, being objective in the section, and you just describe what you see on the screen. So moving down, we get into the evaluation and analysis section, and this section makes up the bulk of the memo. So it should be about 2 pages in length. So in this section, some people divide it up even further. They might actually list the criteria for evaluation. Oftentimes we might have a section right before this criteria and just say this website is being evaluated on the following criteria. So things that you think are important for good websites in general, and things that you think are important for the particular type of website that you're looking at. So, so what we're seeing here, this image is basically the writer has done a screen capture, and then they cropped it down to just focus on the part that they wanted to look at. So in this example, it's the scores and the banner and the navigation at the top of the site. So the writer cropped everything else away. We also have a caption with that. So pretty much we want captions with every one of our images. So then it continues on, and maybe kind of a dense paragraph. We might break this up a little bit, but then we have another screen capture. So we're talking about things, evaluating, writing critically at this point about the website, but we're also showing the reader what we're talking about. So, and the evaluation analysis continues on. Here we are on page 3. So we've got a good chunk of evaluation in this memo. And then after the evaluation and analysis section, we typically have a recommendations section, recommendations for improvement. And I'm not sure why these are kind of not aligned very well, but it is typical to have these recommendations in bulleted form. That way they're kind of like action items, like a checklist. You may actually mention these recommendations in the evaluation and analysis section, but then just kind of reiterate them here. So, because a lot of people want to, this is a pretty standard part of a memo, a lot of people want to flip to the recommendations first and see what's happening there. So again, another reason that we have sections in our memo. One thing missing from this particular example is there should be a conclusion as well. So we would type conclusion, give it a heading like we have with recommendations, and then we just need a simple sentence or two there. We hope you find this memo report to be in order. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us, and then provide your contact info. So do not say sincerely and then have the complimentary close with the signature. That's another thing that we don't do in memo writing. So we don't say dear so-and-so at the beginning, and we don't say sincerely and your name at the end. So instead, use the statement of purpose to get into the memo, and use a brief conclusion to wrap up the memo. Okay, so that's one example. Let me see if I can find another here. Okay, this memo is for a retirement center, and they have their own website. You might notice the use of color here, Spring Mill, and then the same color in the memo. We actually don't need this box up here at this point because it's kind of redundant to have both of these. But we have our header, and then we have the statement of purpose, and then we have background and overview. So again, being descriptive at that point. What we don't have with the background overview section in this example, which we should have, is a screen capture from the website's main page. So I would try to put both of those together. In this particular memo, the writer has articulated her criteria for evaluation: design, accessibility, navigation, and content. What should have happened here, criteria is a major section heading. The next major section heading is evaluation and analysis, and so that should have been in this size text and color. And then we need a smaller subheading for each of these subsections in the evaluation and analysis: design, accessibility, navigation, and content. So the writer made them each major sections instead of subsections, but so wanted to draw your attention to that. With the last memo, we didn't see so much of the use of call-out boxes, but these are also important, and I'll show you how to do those here in a little bit. we see the screen capture, and then the writer has created these call out boxes, and they're pointing in to certain things in the image, in the screen capture, that they want us to pay attention to. So it's much better to do this using call out boxes. Then sometimes people will try to make the arrows, they'll try to say everything in this caption, and they'll try to make arrows come out of the caption and into the image, and that gets pretty sloppy. Same thing as if you try to make arrows come out of the body text and point into the image. That also gets pretty sloppy. So the best way to do it, talk about it in the body text, have a caption. You can also talk about it there, but in order to point out what you're talking about, use the call out boxes, and I'll show you how to format those. Okay, so moving on, more evaluation and analysis. We see some images and call out boxes pointing out things in these images, and some red arrows also pointing out things in these images. So that's kind of what I'm looking for in terms of screen captures in the body of the document. And then we get into accessibility, and so we have a couple of more screen captures with captions, and certain things are pointed out in that. Same thing down here, capturing the banner and showing that you can click on the logo to get back to the home page. And navigation, so we're seeing more discussion of the navigation and pointing out certain things in the image. And content. So this is kind of discouraged as a practice, having arrows coming in and out of captions. It would be better to have a call out box that goes along with this image. So okay, so moving along, and then we get down to recommendations for improvement, and then we get down to a conclusion. And so that's pretty much the order of business with this assignment. We're engaging in memo writing. We're dividing it up into predictable sections, pretty standard sections, and we're also engaging in constructing an analysis. And I could have made this analysis about almost anything, but decided to make it about websites, because it's something that many of us have familiarity with, and it's much more interesting to do a analysis of a website than if I give you, an owner's manual or some type of a memo, some type of a technical document, and asking you to write an analysis of that. So, okay, let me see if I can find maybe one more example here. Okay, in this particular memo, I think it's all in pretty good shape. Again, we see memo at the top of the document. We have our header field at the top. We have our statement of purpose, and we have the background overview statement. I do think we need a screen capture of the main page to go along with that section. We don't see it here, so one thing that it's missing. We do see a section devoted to a statement of criteria, so I think that's a good thing to have. You don't have to have it. You can go straight into evaluation and analysis, and then your criteria will become revealed during that part. That maybe you'll say something about, one of the important things is the appearance of the website. So, and then you go off and talk about appearance. So you've kind of indicated to the reader, we're going to talk about appearance in this paragraph, and then you talk about that for a while. So it could be that your criteria become revealed through your evaluation and analysis section. Okay, moving on, 2 pages here, and we can see in the top left-hand corner analysis, and then we see appearance. So we're moving into the evaluation and analysis section, and the writer is analyzing the appearance of the website. So we do have a screen capture at the top of this page, and we also have these call out boxes that are pointing out certain things in the image. We also have a caption right underneath the image. Going down a bit further on the left, we have another screen capture on there with a caption underneath. On the next page, we have another screen capture with a caption underneath. And then we go into navigability as a criterion that's being evaluated. So maybe it's a little hard to tell what's going on here, but there's actually a screen capture with the navigation at the top, about, catering, locations, menu, VIP, online ordering. And then they're showing what happens if you click on the online ordering. You'll see Malvern or Westchester down there. And then underneath that paragraph, it says additional links. And so they've got some social media stuff down there. So in between, they've squeezed in a paragraph talking about navigability. So kind of a complex layout here. I'm not expecting that. The right-hand side of the screen that we're looking at is much more complicated than the left-hand side of the screen, so you don't have to get terribly complicated with this. But the writer has been consistent with screen colors for their call-out boxes and for their circles and other things, and I think for their headings and subheadings and captions, kind of sticking with the color scheme of the website, so I think that's a good strategy. We have two more pages of evaluation here. So top left, we see content, and then this whole page is talking about content. And then on the right-hand side of the page, takeout accessibility, and they're talking about that on that page. So we've had 4 pages of evaluation and analysis, and that's good because the evaluation analysis section is the heart of this document, the guts of this document, and so it should take up the most real estate in this document. It's kind of what the people who own the website are kind of, let's pretend that they're paying you for this analysis, and this is what they're paying the big bucks for, is the evaluation analysis part. But we have a couple other bits and pieces of apparatus that go into memo writing, and we're putting those in there as well. So moving on, so we get to the last page. We have the recommendations, again in the form of a bulleted list. They may have been mentioned in the evaluation analysis section, but they're being summarized here. And then we have a conclusion at the end. So this is a really good memo, a good example. So let me talk a little bit about a few other things. Hang on just a second. Okay, back to my slides for a second. Possible sites to explore for this assignment. In the past, I've kind of made this pretty wide open, but my second bullet item is a strong suggestion to you guys that maybe the company that you applied to for the employment packet would be a really good website to evaluate for this assignment. So you're becoming somewhat familiar with the organization. And so also with the website analysis memo, the assignment after this is a document standards memo. And again, you can make it for any organization, but sometimes, again, I encourage people to make it for the organization that you applied to for the employment packet, and for a couple of reasons. One thing, the document standards manual has a section, company overview, and so you could use your organizational profile from your employment packet for that part of the standards manual if you're making it for the same company. The other thing is, by completing this memo assignment, you will have kind of come to realize certain policies that make for good web design and not so good web design. And so when it comes to the document standards manual and communications policies, one of the things you could put in there would be some website standards. And so you'd have some of that covered by having completed this assignment. So these assignments are supposed to kind of stair step one into the other, and I think it integrates it even more if you happen to make some of these things about the same company. So, but it's not a requirement. Okay, moving on. Your audience and purpose for this assignment. This is the rhetorical situation. So, audience, people in the organization who can affect change to the website. So, various people, the person who maintains the website curator, the public relations or public information director. That's a big public-facing document, so a website is a document. Administrators, executive officers, they can also affect change on the website. So this is kind of who you're imagining writing this memo to. Purpose of the memo: to help them improve their website and also showcase your critical skills in providing feedback to them on their own website. So, okay. So, I think lastly, in terms of this part of the lecture, criteria for evaluation. So I included a bunch in the assignment sheet, including things like rhetorical situation, audience and purpose, ethos, pathos, logos, kairos. So some of those rhetorical terms could be things that you're doing. There are also criteria that just make for good websites in general. And then depending on what type of website you're looking at, there are criteria for that particular type of website. So that type of organization. So university websites fall into the same genre. Financial institution websites kind of fall into the same genre. Information websites fall into the same genre. So you have to kind of figure out what genre this website belongs to, and then kind of, I call it sizing up the competition, looking at competitors' websites and seeing what works and doesn't work and what each of these sites should have on it. So, okay, so let me stop here for a second. Okay, this particular document, I wanted to show you some things about doing screen captures and creating graphics in your document. So what I did is I just did this by hand, just typed the word memo, and I did my to, from, regarding, and date fields, and then I went ahead and filled them in. And then I have my statement of purpose. The purpose of this memo is to provide an evaluation of the Westchester website, make recommendations for improvement. And then I have a background overview section here, but unfortunately the text is not really background overview text. What I did is I used the text from the assignment sheet as kind of filler text here. So that's what's going on here. But I did a screen capture and stuck it in here and gave it a caption. And so basically it's kind of a full-size image, as close as I could get it. It'll try to set it as, if it's like a website, it's a pretty good size image. It'll try to set it as wide as the margins, if it's larger than the margins. But I actually had to shrink it down just a little bit to make it pop back onto the first page, because otherwise, when it was all the way out to the right margin, it wouldn't stay on the first page. It kept jumping to the second page. But anyway, this is a whole page screen capture, or whole screen, and there are several ways of doing screen captures on Macs and on PCs. So if you're on a PC, you may notice, whether it's a laptop or a desktop, that either near the F row of keys at the top or near the space bar at the bottom, you might see a button that almost looks like it says print screen. It's oftentimes PRT SCR. And you would think that a button that says print screen would do just exactly that. That if you're hooked up to a printer, it would connect with that printer and print out the contents of your screen. But that's not what happens. Instead, what happens with the PRT SCR button, print screen, is that it captures the contents of the screen as an image and puts it in the clipboard on the computer, the temporary memory. So it doesn't print at all, it just captures the entire screen. And then you can do edit paste to stick that into a document. So on a Mac, it's a little bit different depending on how current or how old your Mac is. They've got a couple of different programs that you can use. There used to be one in utilities called Grab. I think they're now calling it Screenshot. I didn't particularly like it, so I went and found another one in the Apple store and installed that on my computer. But basically, there are ways of doing screen captures on both Macs and PCs. If you run into any problems with that, do a Google search about it, and that'll probably straighten you out. If not, I can also help with some of that. So let me just take this image here, and I stuck it in here, and also, I forgot to show you one more thing. Let me open these again. There is a screenshot button in Microsoft Word. For some reason, mine is kind of grayed out right now, but you could tell it to insert a screenshot using that. Basically, what's going to happen is when you click on it, it's going to show you the available screens that you could capture, and then you're going to select one of them and capture it. And I think when I put this image in here, let me just zoom in on it. There were the tabs and the outside of the browser, what they actually call the Chrome of the browser, and I cropped those out. And there were also like the bottom of the computer, the dock, the systems tray and stuff down at the bottom, and I cropped that out too. And so basically what I did, let me show you on this larger image. To crop the image, doesn't look like it's wanting to cooperate with me. I think I might have to save this document first. Hang on a second. Okay, so I resaved the document. I think it was in an older file format. Now it's in a newer file format. And so now I'm getting some functionality that I didn't have before. So one of them is the screenshot thing. And when you do screenshot, it shows you what's open right now. And you can go take a picture of one of those. So let me see if I can do that here. I'll kind of go down toward the end. Okay, go on to next page here, and let me set up my web browser for this. Okay, so I've got my web browser on the Westchester University homepage. It's a little big, I think. I'm going to try to shrink it down a little bit, just to get more of that image in there. It doesn't seem to be helping too much. Okay, so if I do a screen capture right now, I'm going to get all this stuff at the top and all this stuff at the bottom, but that's okay. So let me go back to my Word document, and I'm going to do screenshot and click on this one. It's my Google Chrome. And there it put the screenshot into my document. So what I want to do at this point is kind of trim away some of that extra stuff. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to, once I click on the image itself, watch up here next to Review and View, and you're going to see another toolbar pop up that says Picture Formatting. So I'm going to click on that, Picture Format, and go to that tab. I clicked on the picture, went to the Picture Format tab, and now I can go to the Crop button, and I can crop away. I don't need all that stuff at the top, so I can get rid of a lot of that. And that's probably it. It didn't capture anything else at the bottom. Okay, so I click here and click anywhere else, and there's my screen capture. I can click on it, and on most recent versions of Word, you can do a right mouse click and do Insert Caption. So I can do WCU homepage. I really don't need to say more than that at the beginning. And there's my caption. Okay, and let me take this image and shrink it down just a little bit. And so normally the first time we do the screen capture, we're just trying to capture it pretty much as big as we can, and we're not doing any call out boxes and such. But now we're at the point where we might want to put some call out boxes in here. And so there are a couple of ways of doing this. You go to Insert Shapes, and you actually see down here at the bottom there are some predefined call out boxes. You can use some of those if you want. You could also draw a box and then add an arrow to it, make that kind of a call out box. I think what I'm going to do instead, just my own personal preference, is I'm going to do a text box. And I'm going to draw a text box, and I'm just going to put it over here. The default setting for a text box is a solid white, solid black line around it, and a solid white fill. It almost looks like a clear fill because the background is also white, but if I move it over here, you see that it actually is a solid white fill. And so now I'm just gonna put a little caption in here, and I'm gonna say something about summer programs are frequently featured Okay, so I've got my text in here. It's just as big as my body text, and oftentimes with captions we actually make the text a little smaller. So let me go ahead and do that. Instead of 12 point, I'll go down to 11. Sometimes people like the caption text to be italicized, and so we're kind of set up at this point to draw our arrow. And I would again go back into Insert Shapes and take this arrow here, and I'm going to point over here to Ramey's head. Right now the arrow is kind of a light blue, and I'm going to change that just to make it black. Okay, and with this text box there are a couple of things I can do. I was looking for the outline. Let me just go like this. I'll do a right mouse click, format shape, and for line, I'm going to say no line. Okay, so now I've just got my text kind of floating out there in space, and nothing wrong with that. Let me undo that for a second. This time I'm going to do the fill on the text and do solid fill. Whoops. Solid fill. And the color, I'm going to make it yellow, kind of like a sticky note. See if I can do this here under shadow. Was trying to do a drop shadow. Okay, and again on the outline, and go to no line. And so now I've kind of formatted it to look a little bit like a sticky note hanging out there in space. Somehow my arrow went to black again. I mean to blue. I got it back to black. So there's a screen capture, cropping the screen capture, resizing the screen capture. Let me go back here and maybe do a little more cropping. And so maybe what I really want to talk about is just the navigation bar at the top. And so I'm cropping it again, click somewhere else, and maybe I'm going to say something about the Westchester logo. We'll take you back to the home page. If you can't see that shape very well, you could always do something like a red or make it thicker or something. So basically, those are some of the things that we're looking for in terms of doing a screen capture at the beginning, and then doing screen captures. They don't need to be from the main page. They can be from secondary pages. They can be from the bottom of the page. They can be from anywhere on the page. Things that you noticed about the website as you were going through it and that you want to put into your evaluation and analysis section. So let me stop right there with that. Let me go back to my notes. Okay, so getting started, investigate possible websites for this assignment. Consider using the website for the organization you applied to the employment packet. Define the genre and size up the competition. Decide on the website to be analyzed. Can include comparisons to other websites. Pretty natural to do compare and contrast. Begin recording your observations and analysis. Set up those different sections of your memo and try to get that background overview section done with a screen capture, and then we'll proceed from there. Okay. So I think that's all I've got with this lecture for today. Let me wrap things up, and I'll be talking to you again soon. Thank you very much.